David Edward and Stacy Dymalski discuss Stacy's book, The Memoir Midwife.
Stacy, how are you?
I'm great. How are you, Dave?
I'm good. And I sometimes I ask people where they are, but you already told me, and you're actually in Hollywood.
I am in Hollywood, California, just to
That's
make sure we get the right Hollywood in there. Yes,
that's
I
right.
am.
I'm in Florida. We have a Hollywood, but as we talked about, it's not quite the
Not,
same level of
no,
prestige.
not the same. Yeah.
Well, that's interesting. Now you've written a couple books, and one specifically we're
Yes.
going to talk about. But before we get to that, you're not just in Hollywood, but you have been in Hollywood, right? Or at least on the edge of in Hollywood for a long time.
Yes, I am. I'm a screenwriter by trade. I went to UCLA as a grad student and studied storytelling. Yes, there is something where you can do nothing but study story structure.
Right.
And I am, cut to the chase, fast forward. I am mainly a story developer or script doctor here in Hollywood for video, film, TV, whatever needs help, because my forte is story structure. So yes, I am a member of the Writers Guild, WGA member, and that is, as we will get into, how I came about becoming the memoir midwife.
The memoir midwife with 9 steps to self-publishing your book. That's
Yes.
and see, it shows your polish because that was one of the more beautiful transition plugs.
I'm the queen of segues.
You are, and I want to finish setting you up because you have an IMDb page that you have to scroll through. You can't just
Yes,
look at
you
it.
do. I do. Most of the credits on there are producer, but in Hollywood, a lot of writer credits end up being producer credits because your fingerprints are all over everything as a writer.
Sure, and you've got a show on Netflix right now. You think?
Well, no, it's not on Netflix.
Oh,
You can rent it from Netflix.
Okay,
Yeah, it's in the rental pool.
I
It's
got
called
it.
Jupiter Landing. It's a feature film that I directed, and it's been out for a while. I think it came out in 2005, so it's been around for a while.
But so you know what it takes to get all these different media products, if that's what we want to call them, to market.
Oh, absolutely,
So
absolutely. Whether it's a film or a video or a book,
right.
getting it to market is basically the same steps.
Well, and that's what a lot of people they'll ask me, Dave, I think I want to write a book. What should I do? And I said, well, pick a story that you want to know the ending of, because pick something you're going to finish. But you finished scripts, you
Mhm.
finished
I
actually
finished other people's scripts
you
even.
finish other people's scripts and books and all of that. And I want to set all that up because when you go look for someone who's got a book on self-publishing, you want to make sure that they come with the authority to actually provide insights and help the people. So it took a little long. I want to get that, but so let's talk about this book you have now. The
Okay.
what is it? The Memoir
It's
Midwife.
called, I got it right here conveniently. It's called The Memoir Midwife, 9 Steps to Self-Publishing Your Book. And I branded myself in Hollywood as the Memoir Midwife. It doesn't have to be a memoir. I just like the alliteration. But what I do is I help you give birth to your story. I assist you in bringing your story to life because I do know story structure and characterization. That's not to say I can't birth my own stories, which I have have done many times, but I just have this knack for being able to look at someone's story and go, oh yeah, I know how that should come about. I know what you need to do to make that stand on its own and engaging so people will want to read it or watch it or whatever they want. And
Right.
so I took those skills that I have as a writer producer in Hollywood and I applied them to someone who wanted to write a book and publish it because it's just like indie filmmaking. So it's the same exact steps. And excuse me. And so that's how it all came about. I started teaching at the community college level, story structure and story development, and then self-publishing.
That's fascinating. And so, I mean, we were talking. It's a little recursive. You've published a book about publishing a book.
Yes,
So
it's very
which
meta.
it's very meta. So which came first? I mean, did you learn how to publish the book by publishing books, or
I
how did you research this thing?
I did. So what happened was I also, not recently because of the pandemic, but I'm also a stand-up comic. And so I was doing a lot of comedy and I had a lot of material and I decided way back in 2011 that I wanted to take my comedy and expand them into essays and create a book of humorous essays. And I did that. And it ended up being Confessions of a Band Geek Mom, which back in 2011 became a #1 bestseller in the humor book section on Amazon.
That's
And
great.
so I decided I wanted to self-publish it. And this was back when, self-publishing was still kind of new and wild frontier. But I had production skills through movies. And so I kind of knew, I know about copywriting and all that kind of stuff. And so I bumbled my way through it and somehow it worked. And then I learned a lot from my own mistakes. And at the time I was living in Park City, Utah. And so what I did was I proposed to the University of Utah down in Salt Lake that I do a class for them on self-publishing because it was so new. And they liked the idea because at the time, grad students had to publish to get out. So it was open, it was a community ed class, but it
Okay.
was open to grad students and open to community members. And so what happened was, as I taught this for a couple years, and it was very popular. But at the end of the class, people would always go, "Do you have a book on this? Because this is great material." And it was embarrassing to say, "No, I have not self-published a book on self-publishing." So I did it. And the original edition came out in 2015. And
Oh,
then I updated it to a second edition in 2019, and it came out right before the pandemic.
okay.
So in 2020. So
Yeah.
it's still relevant because as we all know, not a lot of life changed in the last 3 years since, March of 2020. So the book is still very relevant. It's still up to date on all of its information. And it's actually now I'm back full-time in Hollywood. I'm from here originally. And when I was in Park City, I went back and forth, and now I'm here again. And so the book, because we're coming out of the pandemic, people spent a lot of time writing. There are all those people that said, "I'm going to write a book." They did it during the pandemic. And now my book is getting kind of a second life after 2.5, 3 years, because people are turning to it in order to figure out how to self-publish their books that they wrote during the pandemic.
Look, that's kind of what I did. I mean, kind of. And I'll tell you, when I published the first book, I fell for some. I don't want to call them scams. They're
Yeah,
not scams, but you can spend a lot of money for people to help you with stuff they didn't really need to spend all that money on to get done, if
right.
that's a way to say it.
It's sad. So I have had people, because I also have a class at Pasadena City College and Glendale Community College where I teach locally, and they're online classes. So because they still haven't completely opened up over there. Before I used to teach in person, it's still online. So
Right.
anybody can take them from anywhere all over the country. And it's funny because I've had people take that class or read my book, and then that's all they need. They go off, they do it all on their own, and it's a beautiful thing. Then there's other people who take it and go, "That's a lot of work. Can you just point me to somebody I can just pay them to do it, but I'm still the owner of the rights of my book." And I don't do that, but I do have resources. I do know people that I can point them to, hybrid publishers that will do all those steps for them for a one-time fee. And then after that, the book is out, it's published under, whatever imprint they want, and they get the rights and the royalties to it. So there's a lot of options now that didn't exist when I first started this.
Yeah, there's a whole industry that
Mhm.
will help you, and I think kind of what I learned and kind of what you're saying is there's as much help as you could want based on how much you're willing to spend. Um,
Exactly.
Now, one of the
Exactly.
things, and I read through the reviews, the book is very well reviewed. And I don't want to go through all 9 steps, so I don't want it to give the whole book away. But one of the things that people seem to really like is all the instructions on copywriting. Do you want
Yes.
to
And
talk about that?
unfortunately, that's kind of one of the scammy parts of the industry, because if you can order merchandise on Amazon, you can copyright your book. It's that simple. But if you Google "copyright my book," what comes up first is about at least a page or two of paid ads of people who say, "We'll copyright your book for you and make sure it's done right for $200." And for a single author to copyright their book, it's like $47 or $49. It's under $50.
Yep.
And
Yep.
so, and it's very easy and straightforward to do. And you just go to copyright.gov and they walk you through it. So yes, that I think there were a lot of people who read my book after they did their first book and realized, oh, I I fell for that one. And so, yeah, you're right. There's just a lot. Every step has its own little golden nuggets of wisdom that you can use to get your book out for a lot less than you probably thought.
Yeah, look, I learned how to copyright just exactly what you just said, copyright.gov. And it's actually easier to do it yourself than fill out some of the forms and deal with these people that are trying to make it feel like it's a bigger deal than it really is. I
Yeah.
have all my little certificates over here sitting
Yeah.
on the shelf. Yeah, and again, it takes about 3 weeks, I guess, and they're very official looking. It feels very,
Oh, they look like college degrees,
yeah,
or
exactly. Yeah.
the title to your house or something like that.
Yeah, the first cup I put in a frame. I'm like, well, I'm gonna put this in a frame now. I don't care. I just throw them
Yeah.
in the pile. And I don't know if it. I don't know. But what I know, what I understand about copywriting is, you can put all the notifications in, but if you ever had to really, really, really enforce it, they're going to want to see that it was actually registered.
Right.
And you have that certificate. And even then, it might be hard, but you can't even. That's basically your ticket into the game. If you think there's someone. And just, I've said it in one other video, but my main book, this one, Panama Red, which is my biggest success, it got bootlegged, and anyone can now go download it from all kinds of sites. And I thought about trying to enforce it, and I have the certificate on it, but I'm like, I'm not going to chase it. So instead, I made it free, thinking just, there's a whole series after it, so it's just like, it's marketing, but it's not out of the realm of the very probable that if your book has any kind of success at all, you're going to need that copyright.
Yeah, this book is actually, I've shut it down a couple times, but I suspect it's been bootlegged out there somewhere. But the way the steps are, most people, when they read it, they're going to want to reach out for help. And so it's kind of like, well, I can shut it all and spend all that time shutting it down, or maybe somebody who does get a bootleg copy will reach out, because I'm very approachable in the book and online. And so I just decided I'll just put my energy elsewhere. It is something that you risk when you self-pub. Well, even Random House has the same problem. It's just that they got a legal department that can go chase that stuff down.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, they can put the time and resources to chase it down.
But yeah, that is one of the things about digital publishing today, is whether you've created an ebook or not, it is just so easy because of the EPUB format for anybody to download it and copy it and then sell it for free as a membership thing. That's
exactly what they do, right?
Yep.
Yeah, pay them to join the site and you get access to all these books. And they don't know they're paying for it. So I don't think a lot of people know whether they're getting it legit or not.
Oh, I had that happen. I have a friend in France, and he came over here for a wedding, and we caught up, and he's like, oh, it was this book, because this became a bestseller at one time. And he goes, oh, I read your book. And I'm like, oh, you bought it? And he goes, yeah. And he told me about the site. And I'm like, that's some bootlegs. He goes, it's great. I just pay X amount of dollars a year and I can read as many books as I want. And yours was one of them. And I was like, yeah, I'm not getting a dime for that, dude. But
exactly.
Thank you.
No. All right. So I want to ask you one other question about probably one of the 9 steps. It's not, because the other thing that I discovered you could spend a lot of money on, then learned I didn't have to, is getting the cover made. Do you talk about the cover in there?
Yes, I do. Now, here's the thing about when you format the outside and the inside of your book. I like to use 2 different sources for that, because I feel like people who do covers are good at covers, and people who do interiors are good at interiors. So yes, there's bookcovers.com. There's a bunch of different book cover websites, and there are individuals who do nothing but book covers. So it's up to you how much you want your cover to be unique. For example, on this cover, these are all trademarked little characters on my website that I had are completely separate from the book. Long ago, I had an artist develop, and I used them. And so when I went to do this cover, I mean, by the way, you should never do the cover yourself, even if you know how. No.
Come on, these are pretty good.
You should definitely. It's like editing your own work.
You can't edit your own book. I agree. Yeah.
So I hired somebody to do this, and it wasn't one of those 100 covers.com.
Right.
It was an individual artist who specializes in covers, because I had a very specific thing in mind.
Right.
That said, yes, you're going to pay you're going to pay hundreds, not thousands, but hundreds of dollars for somebody like that versus, maybe $100 or less if you go to one of these coverthings.com. But I've seen some beautiful results from some of those websites as well. So it just depends on what you want and how you're going to work with whoever is doing the cover to get what you want.
Well, what do you think what is the typical price range? Do you think high and low for a decent cover?
Okay, I have seen covers cost as high as $1,500, $2,000 because they are using some trademark material on the cover, and they insist upon it. And I have seen covers cost, $99, and it wasn't a bad cover. It wasn't the best cover in the world, but it was certainly for what the book was for. It was more than enough. Right. So it really just depends on if you want to be in bookstores and you want your book to compete against Simon and Schuster books, then because they have entire art departments that work on that stuff, then you got to up your game. Yeah. But if you are a keynote speaker who just wants to sell books in the back of the room, then having a business-like cover that was derived originally from a template is not that bad, and it won't cost you that much.
Yeah, I call those business card books, right? It's where you're professional.
Business card books.
Yeah, you kind of instead of handing out a business card, you hand out your book. Well, look, I could actually milk you for information all day long because
go ahead, I don't mind.
Well, I know, but we don't have don't have enough time, unfortunately, in this format. But maybe we can have another video on it. But I want to ask you, with the book came out the first edition was 2015.
Yes.
And then the second edition was 2019.
Well, like the very end of 2019, it was published, but it wasn't launched until first quarter of 2020, and then the world shut down.
Yeah. So so you mentioned that some people read this. I mean, what's something that has really surprised you about having a book like this out, as far as interactions with people or things people said that you weren't expecting, positive or negative, just anything surprising?
Well, yes. And it's mostly, fortunately, good things. I haven't really had any negative surprise from it, other than what we already discussed, people trying to, sell it for free and keep the money. Yeah. But the positive things that came out of this, a couple of things that I find very hopeful for self-publishing. One is, the book came out first quarter 2020, and then, we have that big interruption. And now the book is having like a second life. So what this tells me is, it's in the world of books and movies, usually box office or sales are all dependent upon, that first weekend, or in books, the first month or all that. And they say, oh, if it doesn't fly, then it's a dud. That is, especially now too, it's true with streaming on Netflix and whatnot. Just because it's not a hit when it first comes out doesn't mean that it's not going to do well eventually. So my advice to people who are self-publishing is look for the slow burn. A lot of stuff that you read online says, oh, you got to do pre-sales. You got to start doing marketing 3 months out. Well, that's great. If you can do that, go right ahead. But if not, once the book is out, it's the slow and steady wins the race kind of thing. So be patient, be diligent. Do things like get on podcasts like this, or get people to review your book. This book is a textbook for my class, which is why there's a lot of reviews, is because people take the class, they get the book, and they read it, and then they're like, wow, this is great, and then they'll go and post a review. Right. So the nice surprise is that it has a second life, down the road. Now, are we going to have a pandemic every time I have a book come out? God, I hope not. But there's always going to be something that prevents it from doing what you had hoped when it initially came out. And just don't give up hope after that.
Something else I learned, at least on Amazon, you mentioned pre-sales. I've done that for a lot of my books, but what I thought would happen is, let's say I pre-sold 1,000 books. Then I thought, like, on day one, I'll be on the bestseller list because it'll have 1,000 sales. But that's actually not how it works. No. You get credit when they do the pre-order. So if someone does a pre-order 90 days out, then by the time the book comes out, that's gone. They're not counting that in the metrics anymore. So yes, pre-orders, they got a lot to them.
Yep. The other thing too is on Amazon, the reviews that really count are the verified purchase reviews. Right.
Mm.
And so a lot of times if you do things like a book signing at your local bookstore, or you give a bunch of books away to your friends and say, read this and review it, they're not going to come up as verified purchase reviews. And so what that means is the review will still be posted on your book's page, but it's not figured into the algorithm that Amazon uses to promote your book to a bestseller, or the algorithm to share your book. A lot of times you've seen on Amazon, if you like this book, you'll love this book. And that's all based on verified reviews. So when you do get reviews, you want to figure out a way to get them to buy the book. And it doesn't matter if it's the ebook or the paperback or the audio, but they just got to show Amazon that they've bought it.
Yeah.
And the other thing people don't really realize on those reviews is somebody who does a review has to have purchased at least $50 worth of Amazon products in the last 3 months. And so if you've got your grandma who's never bought a thing on Amazon and she reviews it, that review will never get posted.
Our whole world is algorithms now.
Yes.
And algorithms in favor of whoever wrote the algorithm.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, everything's slanting. Yeah. So, well, that's interesting. Well, Stacy, we could obviously talk for a while, but we don't have the time. So let's close with oftentimes I ask for people, advice on people that want to write a book and stuff, but you've got the whole thing kind of encapsulated. What's the most relevant piece of advice people will get from reading this book?
Okay, two things. And I always end my classes with this. One, it's got to be fun. And I've had people take my class and go, okay, I didn't realize it involved that much. I am not doing that. I'm going to spend the time looking for an agent or looking for a publisher. I know that's the harder road, but I don't want to do all this other stuff. So if it's not fun, don't find another way. I won't say don't do it, but find another way. And the second is just put your rear end in a chair and write. Yeah. Some people fall in love with the idea of publishing. I've had students take the class, they self-publish their one and only book, and then they start their own little imprint and publish books for other people because they fall in love with the process and not less necessary with the writing of a book. So if you want to actually write books, then you got to stop talking about it and sit down and write books. And many of the people who take my class haven't started or finished writing a book.
Right.
And as a result, a lot of times they come back and take it again, like a year later, or when they finally do finish. So I don't mind. You can take my class every week if you want. But I really think that the first step is to sit down and write your story.
Yeah. And finish it. I mean, we were talking earlier before we hit record, but finish it, right? Because everyone can start a book. Anyone can start a book.
I have an interesting statistic that I start my class with, and it's not to like disappoint anybody, but 80% of the population, well, 81% say, I have an idea for a book, or somebody says I should write a book. So out of 100 people, 81 people think they have a story. And then I go through, how many start, how many finish, how many, and so on. And when you get to how many actually publish the book, either through a publisher or self-publish, it's 0.86%.
Wow.
That's a percentage of a percentage. So it's 86 people out of 1,000.
Wow.
So that's how many go the distance. So a lot of people talk about it, and some might even start, and some might even get to a first draft.
I think that's 8.6 people per 1,000.
8.6 people. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's way more worse. It's worse than he said.
Yeah. So 8.6 people out of 1,000.
Wow.
You're right. Yeah. Actually go the distance. And you may say, well, how can that be? There's a ton of books on Amazon, but there's always been a ton of books. It's just that now we notice it because of Amazon.
Right.
Before, we never had access to every book ever published.
Right. I think that's right. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, look, super interesting. I recommend this book. I'll put a link to it below the video. I wish you nothing but success with it, and of course, in the industry. And I suspect if someone sees this and they want to reach out to you, that's completely fine, right?
Oh, absolutely. I'm reachable through my website, thememoirmidwife.com, or you can email me at stacydymalski@gmail.com.
Beautiful. I'll put your email in the well, no, I won't do that because it'll be on the internet then, but they can figure it out.
Yeah, you can just go to my website
put the
at
website,
memoirmidwife.com. Yes.
Beautiful. All right, Stacy, pleasure talking to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dave. Have a great day.
You too. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for watching. Please consider hitting the subscribe button.